Hello and welcome to another episode of Cricbuzz Chatter. We're going to talk about day three that unfolded in Cape Town. We have with us Shaun Pollock from Cape Town. What a test match it's been. Topsy-turvy, and it's getting slightly emotional, I see, with every hour that seems to be passing by in South Africa. Some very interesting tussles on the field and some very interesting chirping going on as well between players. And obviously both the teams and both the players and all the players for them care for what's happening on the field, and you can see that coming out as emotions. How do you see the day that's unfolded in front of you, Polly?
Yeah, for sure, Digga. I mean, the emotions are running high. They realize there's a lot on the line. India want to win their first Test series here in South Africa. South Africa, who've lost a lot of players, almost have been on the back foot. So it's an opportunity for them to win. There's a lot at stake, and you can understand how the emotions sometimes get the best of people, particularly when you think you've got people out. I mean, I think that was the big talking point. Virat thought he had his, or Ashwin thought he had his wicket, and that they got the kingpin. And if you realize how much of the glue Elgar was at the Wanderers, it's a massive wicket. He's almost been the backbone of the run chase on that occasion. But I think it's nicely set up, isn't it? I mean, we still can't really determine. There's going to be a result. We've got 2 days to go, just over 100 required. One way or other, there's going to be a team winning this Test match, and that's what you want. It's waited for a team to take the game by the scruff of the neck. A few teams have been ahead of the schedule. At one stage when Pant and Virat were batting together, that you thought that maybe India could post 300 ahead, and then a little bit of a batting collapse for the Indian side. But it's been exciting, if nothing else. I mean, sometimes the quality of the batting, sometimes the quality of the surface hasn't been ideal, but it's created for an exciting contest. And I'm sure you guys there in India watching the broadcast on the edge of your seats, I'm sure you can't leave the TV screens.
Yeah, Polly, I mean, I remember you were on air when Keegan Peterson got a couple of snorters from Shardul Thakur. I mean, it's very interesting to see why the wickets are playing a little differently. When we started the first couple of days, it looked a pretty solid wicket. But then as the game is unfolded, it's becoming harder for the batters. I mean, that's good signs for India, but all three wickets have been pretty bowler friendly, isn't it, Polly?
They have, and I mean that's not wickets I want to see personally. I'm all for a contest. So if someone runs up and they've got good skills, they can swing it through the air or they can get a ball to seam. That's what you want. Those skills come to the fore. I like pace, I like bounce. So if an edge is found, it carries to the keeper or carries to the slip cord, and that for me is good. These little trampolines that are presenting themselves through the divots that it makes in the grass, where someone of 125 kilometers an hour can run up and make it look like an absolute world beater. We've had them for a while here in South Africa, particularly in the half felt. And, I don't agree with them. I mean, you guys maybe have some surfaces that turn a little bit more than what some of your past players maybe think is appropriate. I can know that I've had a few conversations with some ex-spinners that have played for India. I won't mention any names, otherwise there'll be headlines created. But they've also said a little bit over the top, maybe needs to have a little bit more of a balance. And I'm feeling the same here. You can't have balls misbehaving. Those two deliveries that Keegan Peterson got. I mean, the one that Ajinkya Rahane got out to, impossible. We call it the lawnmower delivery because how you start a lawnmower like that. I mean, that's try and get your hands out the way, but what can you do? There's absolutely nothing you can do. And I don't think that should be part and parcel. Day 4 and 5, yes, maybe at the late on day 4 and into day 5, the cracks start to play a part. One goes up, one goes down. That's the nature of Test cricket, and that's why you want to bat first often. But to have guys 125 standing it up like a little trampoline on a length, it's not right for me.
I want to crack a joke, but you're too old for that.
Maybe. Go for it. Come on. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
It's just the odd 125. You seem to be rubbing it in and it just goes past. I was just reminded of a bowler who used to bowl to me from South Africa at 125, Mr. Shaun Pollock. Where he didn't have much.
Last series. That's my last series. That's why they got rid of me. They said I couldn't bowl 140. Off you go. No longer required.
Surplus to requirement. Amidst all that is happening for the bowlers, it's great to see Elgar and Peterson, the partnership that they've put, and especially Keegan Peterson, the attitude and the attributes that he has as a batsman. It's just great to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I watched him make his debut, just the highlights of it in the West Indies, and I like the look of him. He's moved to the Dolphins, which is my province, and guys have been giving great reviews about him. He's got a couple of double hundreds. And you thought, well, can he cut it out at the top level after the West Indies, there were still lots of questions up for grabs. But he's come in and taken his opportunity here and really looked the part. I think he learned a lesson about weight distribution in his first test. He was caught twice on the crease where he didn't get forward to the fuller balls. But he's learned from that, and he just seems to be getting better and better. So I would tend to say he's been a great find for us. His contribution in this test, where, as we touched on, the wickets haven't been great. And then also this partnership. It's so key when you're chasing scores down that you get partnerships up front. And they've managed to do that. Do you recognize, DK, any similarities between this game? Like a wicket before the close of play, and then the next day someone else comes out to bat when you're expecting someone else to come out to bat. When like Jacques Callis is supposed to come out to bat, and instead Shaun Pollock comes out to bat. Very, very similar. Need 211. We needed 211 to win. I can recognize some similarities in this game.
With all honesty, I must admit, as much as I don't want to praise you, there's not many Shaun Pollocks going around in South African cricket at the moment, so I don't.
We can bring Keshav Maharaj. Keshav Maharaj is going to come out, I reckon.
Don't
tomorrow morning you'll see him.
Keshav Maharaj, Polly. Please do yourself that favor. You're way better than him. But what do you think of India's bowling, Polly? Did you think after that decision not going their way, did you get a little upset, a little emotional?
I mean, it was. I think they lost the plot for a brief time there. Virat is an emotional captain, and that's often a real positive for the team. The energy he brings, the standards he expects, the attitude he shows on the field. The team often takes the lead from him, and when things are down, sometimes he really fires them up, and when things are good, he keeps them going. I just think he got a little bit upset, and you can understand it. And the emotion, you think you've got your second wicket. You understand it's Dean Elgar who played so well at the Wanderers, and you think you're on your way. You've got Ashwin into the attack, and it's done the trick. So that emotion to be turned on its head when they didn't see it coming, they wouldn't have thought maybe going over the top. He gets a bit of a stride in DRS, which is obviously an impartial unit that's set up and recommended by the ICC. It's independent of our production. They've got their own cameras, they've got their own everything. In order to come up and say, okay, that one's gone over the top. It was a tough pill to swallow for them at that time. And that's why I think there was so much disappointment. And after that, there was a period of 3 or 4 overs where that emotion was still high in the minds of the players. They were looking at their captain, who was clearly irritated by the fact that he didn't pick it up. And that's why I think it was such an important wicket at the back end. That last wicket to fall just before the close gives them that little bit of hope and almost gets them back into the contest. So, yeah, it was an emotional time for both teams. And I think those bowlers in particular will be hoping for a better performance tomorrow. I think South Africa, the way they started today, was brilliant, and India need that start tomorrow. 2 quick wickets, and they can almost be that self-belief back in the camp.
And just to set the record straight for all the viewers, you got to understand that the host broadcaster, in this case being SuperSport, has got nothing to do with that decision in many ways, because DRS brings in their own cameras to do the ball tracking technology, and then that has gone on to show it's gone over the stumps. And obviously all the tempers flaring up is because of the emotions attached to the game, and it looked plumb in front when you saw it in real time. But obviously when we went on to the DRS, it showed something completely different, and that happens, and we got to take it with it's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow for the Indians. But what was not bitter today was technically one man who created the difference between India setting their target and getting bowled out for much lower score, Mr. Rishabh Pant. And what a knock did he play. He's got 100 now in England, Australia. Now he's come to South Africa. The series decider, the last innings in this test series, gone on to score a brilliant 100 for me. Did you enjoy that inning personally?
I did indeed. As a broadcaster, you often just have to sit here and appreciate the way he went about it. Surface wasn't easy. And that's why we go back to that last test match. In the third delivery, when you're charging down, he's a much better player than that. And we mentioned it on one of our Cricbuzz Chatters that, he needs to give himself a little bit of time, because if he gets in, that's how destructive he can be. As you mentioned, to have 100 in Australia, England, and South Africa, those aren't easy places to go for a person who comes from the subcontinent. Different kind of surfaces, more bounce, a lot to deal with. And he was brilliant. I was heaping praise on him as we sat there and watched. He probably regrets now leaving Bumrah with or allowing him to take 2 when he could have got back on strike and looked to smash it again. But you can't take away from him. And then Kohli as well. Kohli, someone had to stick around with Pant. Pant was going. He was backing himself. He was going to be effective. and someone needed to be able to form that partnership. Virat was slow in his 29, I think, of 140 odd or 50 odd balls, and there's the contribution 15 of 103 in the partnership. But that was the perfect foil. Actually, when the 2 wickets fell in the morning, I said, I think this is the perfect foil. To have punt to counter punch and Virat to just be there, stay there, was exactly what India needed, and it proved to be the case. I think they'll be a little bit disappointed, as we talked about the collapse. I think they should have posted more and given themselves a few more runs to work with.
Absolutely. If you do see that scorecard, it's a telling tale. You just see that one bright knock, the 100, and then obviously Virat Kohli playing a captain's knock in many ways and chewing up a lot of balls, which was very important for India. But the rest of them, obviously, they got a couple of snorters. You have to speak about that, especially Ajinkya Rahane and to an extent Pujara as well. But the others, Ravichandran, Ashwin, Shardul Thakur, I think they know that they've played some disappointing shots. India, when they're playing six batters, they expect a lot more from their all rounders, and I think they would obviously understand that they haven't lived up to their part with the bat and they'll be trying to do their best with the ball. And what's most interesting is the third highest scorer in this inning seems to be the extra, seems to be at 28.
Can cost you. That can cost you, can't it? I mean, that will be something that they'll have to reassess South Africa if they don't get over the line, if they're a few runs short, all the no balls and all the extras. There weren't too many keeping errors, so we'll forgive the keepers for that. And I'm sure you're very, very good at looking after the keepers.
Yes, definitely. I think we have to understand that extras being part of the game, but obviously they bowled far too many no balls for anybody's liking. But one man who bowled really well today, Lungi Ngidi, and obviously Marco Jansen as well. But what did you make of Lungi Ngidi's spell, Polly? How did you enjoy watching that?
Yeah, it was so important, wasn't it? I mean, the key wicket was Virat, and then to follow it up with two quick ones after that. 7-over spell for him. He hasn't done that throughout the series. I do get the feeling there's a little niggle and that they're looking after him in some way or form or shape. Because he's been like 3 overs, 4 overs, and maximum 5-over spells. So for him to push through and pick up that 3 for 12, I think that was in many ways the catalyst moment for the South Africans. I think it was key to getting them to bounce back and get them back into the game. And that was more like the Lungi we saw in the first test. He's gone missing a little bit at the Wanderers in the first innings here, but that's what we like to see from him. It was proper good bowling.
As much as we speak about Ngidi as well, the one man who I think has lived up above and beyond everybody's expectation for a young man coming into his first series, just broke your record, having the most number of wickets by a South African in his first series, Marco Jansen. And he just grown in stature in these 3 test matches. I remember at the start you said you were surprised they played him ahead of Oliver. But now I think he's justified his position and he's bowled really well through the series.
He has, and I mean, his attributes he brings. He's tall. He gets that bounce. He can get some shape. You never know what you're going to get at the top level. Can you bring that form provincially into the international level? And you throw Nortje back into the mix here with Rabada, Ngidi. You probably find Dwan or Lafayette would miss out. You've got Nortje who can bowl 150 clicks. That's a proper awesome foursome. And it's going to ask a lot of questions around the world. So that's interesting times for South Africa. If they can just find some batters now to help them get big scores, it could be an awesome team.
Okay, Paulie, just Cricbuzz Chatter is a lot about discussions, but sometimes I have to ask you a question, and for that we have to head to Hotspot. On the Hotspot today, if South Africa go on to win this test match, Paul, do you think it'd be considered an upset, or do you think it's something that's expected?
No, I would say totally an upset, particularly from what we saw in the first test match. I mean, India dominated on day one of that first test in the first day of the series. And I didn't think South Africa had the batting, personally, to be able to bounce back. I think it was a spectacular effort at the Wanderers by one person in particular, Dean Elgar, to get them over the line here. And even in this test match, you felt that when you look at the two teams, you keep thinking to yourself, well, surely the strength lies with the India team compared to when you compare it to South Africa. So I would think it would be an upset. Yes, they haven't won here, and it is local conditions, but you guys have got an awesome bowling lineup and able to get wickets and bowl teams out. So I think it would be knowing the personnel in the South African side, where they've come from, how inexperienced some of them are, for them to get over the line and beat India, who's rated number 1 in the world. yeah, I think it would be a surprise for me. I don't know. What would you say on that?
Same, Polly, absolutely. I think it'd be a massive upset, and I say that because obviously this Indian team have travelled well in the recent past. They beat Australia in
Mm.
Australia. They've, obviously beaten New Zealand in a test. They've, they've beaten England in two tests. So they've been travelling well. They've been World Test Championship runners-up. So they have some pedigree. The batsmen are high quality. The bowlers have been obviously the strong force, so to say. Whereas, obviously, in South Africa, over a period of time, some of the big names that you're usually used to in terms of the Amlas, the Faf du Plessis, the AB de Villiers, they haven't been playing. So the batting looked very light for me. And when you go into a test match with light batting, more often than not, you're always, behind the eight ball. So I assume that India would actually have it much easier than what they've been having right now. But it's the one thing that you always go to South Africa and realize is that the fighting spirit, the fortitude, there's not many countries who can fight with that. I think South Africa have been up there with those two attributes, and that's what has put them in a commanding position heading into day four. And as we need to head into day four, I have one last question for you, and that's called the fast forward, Polly. All right, as we head into
Let me guess. Let me guess. Let me guess. Who's going to win? That's your fast forward question, right?
yeah, you can say that. Yeah. Okay, now that you asked the question, go ahead, Polly. What do you think?
No, no, you go. You go with your question. Go with your question.
No, I was framing it nicely. You just came and broke my chain of thought. I've lost it.
Okay, go. You see, good bowlers have got an ability to make batters lose their train of thought, to make them think about other things, and then that's when we do the damage. I think South Africa should win this. I think if you had to be honest with both teams, I think the position South Africa have got themselves in now, it would require a quality bowling performance, and I think India would be really chuffed and feel like they maybe have got off the hook if they end up winning this test. South Africa will feel like they've let themselves down if they don't get over the line. 111 to get, and you've got 8 wickets in hand. Yes, there's not a lot of experience in that middle order, but I think, in all honesty, South Africa should be backing themselves. It's Test cricket. It's a surface that's got a bit, so we're not saying anything for sure. But if I think if teams had to be honest with themselves, they would probably say South Africa's noses are in front. You, come on, give it to me.
I genuinely think there's a twist in the tail here, Polly.
Okay.
I say that only because I think they'll come a lot more charged up. They'll go sleep over what they've done today, and they probably will know post that DRS decision. They just let it, drift a bit, which is not what something the Indian team is used to. And for me, for some strange reason, I feel the key man for me would be Mohammad Shami. I think, with the bolt upright seam on that wicket with the
So please tell me, you need to just explain one word. The surprise. Why was it a surprise? He's been brilliant throughout the series. Why would it be a surprise if he comes good?
No, he'd be brilliant, but I always feel that come at the hour, come at the man for me always has been Bumrah. But I feel tomorrow, personally, Shami will be somebody who's going to be very special because I think he has the ability to get Keegan Peterson out, and it's got to do more with the wicket and the uneven bounce.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to get my Cricbuzz boys to send you a stat, and if you ever look at Mohammad Shami's performances in the second innings, they are next level. I think he's like almost the best in the world ever in the second innings. So that's why I think it's a good call, actually. I mean, he's the wicket-to-wicket guy. I can see him running in from the Wynberg end and causing some trouble in combination with Bumrah. It's going to be great viewing, isn't it? I'm sure you'll be tuned in and gluing to your TV set and to have a look, and then we can chat about it after that.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, we have a very happy Polly, hoping that South Africa would pull the rabbit out of the hat. And me, on the other hand, hoping for a twist in the tail. Well, we will know about it. And most importantly, we'll be discussing about it on Cricbuzz Chatter, same time tomorrow. See you all there. Take care. Good night.